My legs pumped like pistons, the searing ache in my muscles a distant throb against the roar of my own panicked breaths. Every gasp felt like swallowing fire, my lungs burning with the strain of pushing my body beyond its limits. I didn't dare spare a glance behind me. The sound of crackling energy and shattering concrete was enough to fuel the terror propelling me forward. We had lost. The Zildjian Armada descended upon Earth with the cold efficiency of predators. Their sleek, chitinous ships sliced through the atmosphere, lasers turning cities into blazing infernos with terrifying ease. We fought back, bravely, stupidly, hopelessly. Conventional weapons bounced harmlessly off their ship's shielding, and for every one of their ships we managed to take down, 2 more swept in to fill its place. Our losses were staggering, our spirits crushed, and I was among the broken remnants fleeing for my life. Hope was a fragile, flickering thing now. Rumors whispered through the shattered remains of our forces, stories of a last-ditch effort, a desperate plan tucked away in a hidden research facility somewhere in the forgotten deserts. A weapon, they said, something different. I clung to those whispers, fueled by the desperate need to believe we weren't completely abandoned. The comm unit strapped to my forearm crackled to life, the voice of Sergeant Hale barely audible over the static. Lieutenant Carter. Lieutenant Carter, do you copy? Hale. Hale, what's your status? My voice was raw, ragged with exertion. Extraction's here, they're waiting for us at Point Zulu. We're a mile out from your location, can you make it? A flare of hope ignited in my chest. Zulu Point was the rendezvous for transport out of this hellhole and maybe, just maybe, to the facility whispered about in the stories. Affirmative. I'm inbound. I forced myself to sprint harder, ignoring the blinding pain in my legs. The devastated cityscape stretched out in front of me, a twisted monument of steel and smoke. Collapsed buildings formed a maze of hazards, but the adrenaline numbed the throbbing of my impact-bruised feet. A roar echoed overhead, and a Zildjian fighter jet sliced through the sky, its shadow flickering across my path. I dove for the skeletal remains of a bus, the metal groaning in protest as I slammed into it, landing in a tangle of limbs and torn uniforms. I barely had time to catch my breath when the ground shook with a thunderous explosion. The bus heaved to one side, the windows shattering outwards. Scrambling to my feet, I saw flames lick at the blackened street less than 30 meters away. The fighter jet circled back, its sleek form menacing against the smoke-choked sky. Another explosion, closer this time, sent shockwaves rippling through me. Chunks of concrete rained down from a nearby building as the fighter zoomed past, tracing a deadly arc in the air. Carter. You alive out there? Hale crackled in my ear, urgency lacing his normally stoic tone. I'm pinned down, Sergeant. Zildjian fighters making a run, panic threatened to choke the words out. I knew what came next. They'd soften me up with a few more blasts, clear out any threat, then their ground troops would swarm what was left of me. The comm crackled again. Hold tight, Lieutenant, help's on the way. Help? What in the hell could possibly help against an air unit? Before I could question it, a new sound split the air, a harsh metallic whine rising in pitch that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. It was coming from the direction of Point Zulu. I scrambled atop the bus, heart hammering a staccato beat in my ribs. Squinting against the smoke, I saw a sight that made my jaw drop. A massive, blocky shape hurtled towards me, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris in its wake. Its olive drab armor was streaked with scorch marks, its form more brutal utility than sleek elegance. A tank. A colossal, monstrously oversized tank, easily dwarfing anything I'd ever seen on a battlefield. The Zildjian fighter must have spotted it too, because it banked sharply, pulling away from me. The tank roared on, ignoring the fighter now zeroing in on this new, more intimidating target. And that's when I saw the turret swivel. The cannon was impossibly large. It looked capable of lobbing around the size of a car into orbit. The whine intensified, growing into a high-pitched shriek, and the space around the tank's cannon began to shimmer and warp. My mouth dropped open in bewildered shock as the air crackled with a building energy I could feel in my teeth. The Zildjian fighter swooped in for a strafing run, likely anticipating an easy kill against such a cumbersome ground target. But the moment it entered firing range, the tank unleashed its fury. There was no deafening boom, no concussive blast of wind like I expected. Instead, a blindingly bright beam of searing white energy lanced out, striking the fighter with impossible precision. The alien spacecraft wasn't vaporized. It seemed to collapse inward on itself. The jet crumpled like a tin can under an unseen force, its sleek lines distorting in a way that made my stomach churn. Then it winked out of existence, leaving only a wisp of smoke against the burning skyline. I stared, dumbstruck, my mind struggling to process what I had just witnessed. Sweet merciful. Hale's voice was thick with awe, mirroring my own incredulity. Extractions inbound, Lieutenant. Get your tail over to Zulu. We're going for a ride. My legs, screaming in protest just moments earlier, responded with a fresh burst of energy, driven by a renewed, blazing surge of hope. This behemoth of a tank, this impossible weapon, it changed everything. Maybe the Zildri weren't invincible. Maybe, against all odds, there was still a way to fight back. Point Zulu was utter chaos. What had once been a makeshift staging area on the outskirts of the ravaged city was now a whirlwind of hurried activity under the smoke-smudged sky. Soldiers swarmed over armored vehicles, shouting orders and hauling crates of supplies. The rumble of engines and the sharp metallic clang of loading weapons formed a chaotic symphony. The mammoth tank, our unlikely savior, dominated the center of the assembly area, a brooding monolith surrounded by gawking soldiers. Mechanics clambered over its armor, eyes wide with a mix of excitement and apprehension, while officers in crisp uniforms conferred in hushed tones. I made my way through the throng, dodging crates and ducking under hastily erected tarps, toward where Hale stood next to a grizzled-looking colonel. Lieutenant Carter, glad to see you made it in one piece, Hale greeted me, relief evident in his taut features. The colonel, a heavy-set man with a jawline carved from granite and cold blue eyes, merely glanced at me and returned his attention to the tank. Welcome aboard Project Titan, Lieutenant. You ever seen firepower like that? He asked, but it wasn't really a question. No sir, never, I admitted, my voice thick with residual shock. The colonel smirked, something akin to pride flickered in his eyes. That's the PEC dash that stands for Projected Energy Cannon. Took those lab boys 10 years to crack it, and we had to give up a damned moonbase to get the resources, but worth every credit, he grunted, a hint of satisfaction in his gruff voice. Sir, with all due respect, how does it? I gestured vaguely at the tank, the question hanging in the air. Ain't exactly an oversized laser, if that's what you're thinking, the colonel grunted. Think of it like warping the very fabric of space itself. Crushes matter down to a fraction of its size. Damn Zildri ships are built tough, but even they can't withstand that kind of pressure. I let that sink in, the implications swirling through my addled brain. It was impossible, and yet, I'd seen it with my own eyes. Sir, if this changes everything, why is there only one? The question burst from me before I could filter it through my shock. The colonel's smirk vanished. Takes an obscene amount of power to run that thing, son. Enough to light up half a continent with a flick of a switch. The reactor core. Well, let's just say it ain't exactly stable. Titan's a one and done deal, Lieutenant. You fire that cannon for too long and you'll take out half the country with you. A grim understanding settled over me. We hadn't just been given a weapon, we were handed a last resort. A horrifyingly powerful weapon with a terrifying cost. Your orders, Lieutenant? Hale cut through my troubled thoughts. He'd taken on a new aura of determination, the haunted look of defeat fading. The Titan might be a double-edged sword, but it was a damn sharp sword nonetheless. We're deploying the Titan as spearhead for a counterattack force. Our intel picked up significant Zildri presence in this sector, the colonel gestured vaguely towards the devastated cityscape. Their fleet's got ground forces dug in like ticks, setting up some kind of staging area. We hit 'em hard, hit 'em fast, throw 'em into disarray before they know what's coming. A flicker of a grin returned to the colonel's face. It was a predatory grin, the grin of a man who'd been given a weapon and the go-ahead to use it. We haven't had a chance to field test this beast yet. You, Lieutenant, are gonna be our gunner. I felt my eyes widen in alarm. Sir, I'm an infantry officer, not a. My protests withered before the colonel's glare. You've got eyes and a brain, ain't ya? Lab rats say aiming the PEC is intuitive enough. Get on board, they'll walk you through it, he barked, waving dismissively before turning his focus back to the Titan. My heart hammered like a war drum in my chest as I approached the colossal tank. It looked even more daunting up close, its armor marred by countless battles. A small boarding ramp had been extended, and a cluster of technicians in grease-stained jumpsuits waited impatiently. Swallowing hard, I climbed the ramp, the metal vibrating beneath my boots. The tank's interior was cramped, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of ozone and machine oil. Two figures sat hunched over a bank of monitors and glowing control panels in the center of the chamber, the pilot and the technical officer, or so I was hastily informed. Lieutenant Carter, welcome aboard. Strap yourself in that seat there, the tech officer, a wiry woman with cropped hair and nervous energy, pointed towards a gunner station crammed into a corner. I wedged myself in, the padded seat barely accommodating my combat armor. Before I could ask a single question, the tech officer slapped a bulky helmet onto my head. Displays directly linked to optic feeds in the targeting array. Think where you want to aim, the computer does the rest. Titan'll take care of power distribution and core safety. Only thing you gotta worry about is putting the Zildri in your sights. Her voice crackled through the helmet speakers, garbled slightly by static. It was terrifyingly simple considering that with a thought, I could unleash unimaginable destruction. Titan, this is command, radio check, the colonel's voice cut through the comms. Titan actual, we read you loud and clear, the pilot's voice crackled back, deep and surprisingly calm for a man driving a tank with a doomsday weapon strapped to it. Good luck, boys. The fate of the damn world's riding on you. Command out. With that ominous send-off, the Titan lurched forward with startling force, the roar of its engines a bone-shaking thrum in the enclosed space. We were rolling out, the war machines and soldiers around us parting like the tide to make way for our monstrous metal behemoth. Through the viewports, I saw the shattered city receding, replaced by the desolate landscape of the surrounding wasteland. My fingers tightened on the grips of my seat, the nervous energy thrumming through me threatening to crack my forced facade of calm. We were on our way to face the enemy at the head of a desperate counterattack, fueled by a weapon of horrifying power. I was in control of that power. And I couldn't help but wonder if it would be enough to save us. Or doom us all. The ground blurred beneath the Titan's treads, our monstrous tank crushing through rubble and abandoned vehicles with ruthless efficiency. I was locked into the gunner's station, the helmet's viewport flooding my vision with a tactical overlay, range markers, targeting brackets, and a start countdown ominously ticking down from 50:00 in the upper corner of my view. Core at optimum temperature. PEC is ready to fire on your mark, barked the tech officer. 50 minutes on the clock. That was our countdown until the reactor overheated and we all went up in a radioactive inferno. It was a chilling reminder that the Titan was more than just a weapon, it was a ticking time bomb with us strapped inside. Ahead the wasteland flattened out, giving way to an expanse pockmarked by craters and swarming with Zildri forces. Four-legged walkers, towering giants with shimmering energy cannons, moved with unsettling insectoid grace. Smaller, scuttling drones darted between their legs, while streams of sleek troop carriers converged upon a makeshift command center bristling with antenna dishes. Titan, you have primary clearance. Engage at will. Hale's voice, crisp with barely restrained excitement, echoed over the comms. My heart hammered a frantic tattoo in my chest. This was it. The moment we'd all been waiting for, praying for. It was my shot, my chance to turn the tide, and I was terrified of missing it. Focusing on a cluster of enemy walkers, I willed the targeting brackets to lock on. The computer responded instantly, the Zildri walkers highlighted in an angry red luminescence. A twisted knot of dread mingled with exhilaration coiling within me. One slip, one errant thought, and I could obliterate our own troops by mistake. Fire! I shouted the order, more to myself than anyone else. The world seemed to hold its breath. Not a gunshot, nor a cry of alarm, no deafening explosion, just a pregnant silence that stretched for an agonizing second. Then space itself warped. The effect wasn't immediate, not a burst of blinding light like I expected. Instead, it was as though an invisible hand reached out and squeezed the Zildri walkers. Their silvery armor rippled and buckled, the four-legged machines lurching drunkenly as they were compressed, crushed inwards upon themselves. It wasn't instantaneous, but horrifyingly inevitable. One by one, the walkers twisted into warped, grotesque shapes before imploding with brutal finality, leaving nothing but shimmering motes of dust hanging in the air. A savage satisfaction flared through me, quickly chased by a sickening wave of nausea. It was unnatural, that power. I'd always prided myself on looking the enemy in the eye on the battlefield. This was different, impersonal, and devastatingly effective. My hand twitched, seeking a trigger that wasn't there. Another thought and the targeting array shifted, locking onto a cluster of scuttling drones. I pictured them crumpling, vanishing, the visceral satisfaction of wiping them out warring with a lingering guilt for the sheer ease of it. Lieutenant. New targets. Hale's voice snapped me back to duty. On the screen, fresh Zildri reinforcements were surging from beyond a ridge, fighters buzzing ahead of heavy ground units converging towards our position. They'd reacted quickly, adapting their tactics as they always did. We wouldn't have the luxury of taking our time. I targeted the fighters first. They were fast, agile, capable of raining down destruction on our vulnerable troops. My mind raced, the tactical overlay flashing as I pinpointed the lead fighter, shifted targets, then another. With each thought, the PEC responded, warping space and crushing the alien ships with terrifying ease. Emboldened, I shifted my aim towards the oncoming Zildri armor. Their heavy walkers, once formidable, suddenly seemed less imposing. But as I targeted one of their squat troop carriers, crammed with those reptilian alien soldiers, a wave of hesitation washed over me. The Titan had turned me into a remote executioner, far removed from the immediacy of the battlefield, the faces of the enemies I killed. But they were still soldiers, weren't they? Didn't that deserve some mercy? Or was warfare with the Zildri beyond such considerations? The timer ticked down, now at 38:00. There was no time for philosophical debates. Our soldiers were counting on the Titan to buy them a lifeline. I steeled my resolve. And then came the twist that changed everything. Incoming transmission, Titan. The tech officer's voice crackled with alarm. Zildri waveband. They're attempting to communicate. Impossible, I breathed, confusion overriding my focus. The Zildri had never tried diplomacy before. Patch it through. The colonel's voice cut in, the background crackling with bursts of static. A jumble of harsh, guttural noises filled the comm unit, followed by a modulated translation, the voice metallic and cold, human weapon. Impressive, but unsustainable. Cease fire or witness the true cost of your defiance. A chill ran down my spine. It was a threat, but also a recognition of the Titan's terrifying power. An acknowledgement of our desperation. And hidden within the threat, a sliver of possibility, could we actually bargain with the Zildri? Or was this a ploy, a distraction to buy them time, to bring down their own devastating weapon upon us? My mind raced, the countdown to the Titan's destruction ticking down relentlessly. Every soldier was counting on me, not only to bring them victory but now as the unexpected key to their very survival. Colonel, are we taking their threats seriously? My voice sounded strained, echoing the tension within the Titan's cramped confines. Ignore them for now, Lieutenant, the colonel's reply crackled back. They're panicking, trying to buy time. We've got 'em on the back foot. Keep hitting 'em hard. The Zildri transmission blared again, the harsh alien sounds interspersed with the cold translation. We have targeted your homeworld. We see your families, your cities, your fragile existence. One strike, and billions burn. A wave of icy terror washed over me. Homeworld meant Earth. They had ships within striking distance of Earth. This had escalated beyond a war for survival, it was a fight for extinction. Titan, we're picking up an unidentified craft approaching from high orbit. It's massive. Hale's voice was thick with dread. Despair threatened to choke me. We'd unleashed a monster to fight their monsters, but the cost, the world teetered on the brink of annihilation. Suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind, a desperate gamble born from the realization that every option seemed designed to end in our destruction. Hold fire, I commanded, overriding the colonel's orders. The protesting static was immediate as the tech officer swiveled to face me, her eyes wide with alarm. Carter, have you lost your damn mind? The colonel snarled through the comms. Sir, with all due respect, they're right, I forced the words out, each one heavy with a chilling certainty. This fight, the Titan. It's unsustainable. They've got the advantage. Advantage? Lieutenant, we're crushing them down there. Hale countered, disbelief lacing his voice. And they're threatening to crush everything we hold dear. We can keep pushing, maybe even win this battle, but what about the next one? Or the one after that? We can't hide the Titan forever, and we can't build another one. My voice rose steadily, carrying the weight of this terrible truth. We were fighting a losing war. So, what? You suggest we roll over and die? The colonel's voice was scathing. No, sir. I suggest we play their game. My pulse hammered in my ears as I laid out the audacious, terrifying plan that had begun to crystallize in my mind. Patch the Zildri through. Let them see the Titan, let them see the weapon they fear. But let them also see the countdown. I gestured towards the viewport where our timer had dipped below 2000 hours. We were a dying weapon, a gun with a single, cataclysmic bullet. Carter, you're insane. The colonel's voice crackled with disbelief. But I heard an unfamiliar edge undercutting the usual bravado, a flicker of desperation. Sir, hear me out. We call their bluff. We show them the Titan, show them we're willing to go down in flames. Make them believe we're not just desperate, but suicidal. That this weapon, our fight here, it's just a prelude to something far worse if they push us too far. My voice hardened. Every word I uttered was a calculated lie born out of absolute, terrifying necessity. Moments of tense silence ticked by, broken only by the insistent beep of the reactor countdown. "Titan, you have a green light," the colonel's voice returned, strained but resolute. We were running out of time, in more ways than one. Patching the Zildri through. The tech officer's hands danced over the controls, the harsh alien sounds erupting across our comms again. A moment later, the guttural noises morphed into the digitized translator voice. "Human, this is insanity. You cannot hope to defeat us." The smug confidence was gone from the Zildri voice, replaced with a chilling uncertainty. "Witness our insanity then," I retorted, flicking on the Titan's external camera feeds. "Witness our weapon, witness your doom. And now, witness our timer. We will not be enslaved, Zildri. Should you touch our homeworld, should a single shot fall upon our soil, this weapon fires, and Earth dies with us." I held my breath, every fiber of my being screaming for this insane gambit to succeed. The countdown beeped with maddening regularity, a death knell for us, and perhaps, for the planet. An eternity seemed to pass before the Zildri communicator crackled back to life. We will confer," the Zildri voice stammered, wrong-footed. "You are unpredictable." "Unpredictable and backed into a corner," I shot back. "Now confer quickly, or witness how far cornered animals will go to survive." The line went dead. With fumbling fingers, I ripped off my helmet, drawing in a lungful of air with a shuddering gasp. I was soaked in sweat, the Titan's interior suddenly stifling. "Carter, what in God's name did you just do?" Hale's voice was awestruck, the background static fading as our forces below paused, sensing a potential shift. The colonel remained silent, the comm line buzzing in my hand. Then the countdown hit 5 o'clock, and the world held its breath. Every second stretched into a taut wire of unbearable tension. I stared at the bleak countdown, now flashing angry red warnings as the Titan's reactor core teetered on the brink of catastrophic meltdown. We had less than 5 minutes before we'd vanish in a blaze of radioactive fire, potentially taking a sizable chunk of enemy territory with us. Outside, I imagined the Zildri forces frozen in place. Every one of their reptilian eyes would be fixed on our monstrous tank, on the madman at its helm, on the clock that spelled out their potential doom. The fate of 2 worlds teetered on the response of an alien race we barely understood. The comm crackled, the tech officer wincing at the sudden burst of noise. The Zildri translation filtered through, hesitant and laced with a newfound respect that sent a shiver down my spine. "Your gamble. It may succeed. We have never encountered a species so willfully destructive. You value your existence far less than we predicted." My heart thudded painfully in my ribs. Were we on the path to a twisted sort of victory, one built on mutual annihilation? "There will be a ceasefire," the Zildri voice continued. "Our ships will withdraw from this sector. But understand this, human, any sign of renewed aggression, and your world will burn." A wave of weak relief washed over me, mingled with a bitter taste of defeat. We hadn't won, not truly. They were retreating, buying time, regrouping. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. But we had bought Earth a lifeline, a fragile thread of hope. "Acknowledged," I croaked into the comms. My voice sounded hoarse and unfamiliar. "Titan, did I just hear that right? Are they standing down?" The colonel's voice cut in, disbelieving yet brimming with a desperate hope we hadn't dared indulge in for months. "Affirmative, sir. Temporary ceasefire. The Zildri are withdrawing," I confirmed. My own exhausted mind struggled to process the magnitude of what had just transpired. A roar of jubilation erupted through the comms. Our troops, mere moments ago on the brink of being overrun, were cheering. Below us, I saw scattered Zildri units moving back, their retreat more cautious than chaotic. We had done it. We had stared down annihilation and forced the enemy back. "Lieutenant Carter, you have done the impossible," Hale declared, an undercurrent of awe edging his usually gruff tone. "Not impossible, Sergeant," I countered, a tired smile playing at my lips. "Just improbable." The Titan's reactor groaned in warning. Our time was almost up. "Colonel, we need that extraction, and we need it now," I stated, the urgency returning to my voice. "Titan's core is about to go critical. Extraction is inbound." "Titan, command out," the colonel replied, his voice laced with both triumph and a newfound, sobering wariness. As the roar of the approaching transport filled the air, I couldn't shake the chilling realization. The Zildri knew about the Titan's weakness, its suicidal design. That knowledge would haunt every future confrontation. The pilot and tech officer scrambled out as the boarding ramp descended. I paused at the top, casting one last look back at the gargantuan war machine that had brought us back from the precipice. It was a monstrous creation, forged from desperation. A weapon we should perhaps never have built. "Lieutenant, let's get you out of there," Hale shouted over the din of the approaching aircraft. I turned and ran, the countdown timer in my augmented display now replaced by an evacuation alert. We were clear to leave. Any second now, the Titan's core would destabilize, and the resulting explosion would wipe it off the map, burying its secrets along with our most terrifying gamble. As the boarding ramp lifted, I risked a final glance back at the monstrous silhouette of the Titan. Whether it was a monument to suicidal bravery or mad folly, I didn't know. Perhaps it was both. But as the transport lifted away, the world below shrinking rapidly into a battlefield scarred by the first echoes of a very different war, one thing was dreadfully certain. This was just the beginning.